do this work, the reason why I'm so passionate about supporting individuals in their own journey to love is because, you know, I had my own struggles. You know, I really went through the ringer at one point of my life. It was my total rock bottom, and the catalyst of it all was love and relationships. And if we think about, like, at least for me, you know, one of my purposes is just to live a life full of love and to know how to love well and to just experience that deep connection. And when you do that, everything else is so much more full. You know, my work is full because of it. My health, I feel, you know, this energy and vitality because I have this loving, amazing partnership. And I think a lot of individuals have lost that hope, lost that idea that it's possible. You know, you hear people talk about, oh, the fairy tale's not true, or, you know, that's a movie romance, that's not real. And of course, you know, if you're going to spend a lifetime with somebody, you're going to have your ups and downs. Yet I can tell you that I have a tremendous partnership, and I see many of my clients create tremendous partnerships that really light them up every day. So I think it's so important for individuals to be in the possibility. You know, that's the first step. If you don't believe it's possible, then it's definitely not going to happen for you. So that's why this work is so important, so people can believe in love again. You know, we get so tainted and jaded these days, and I think events like this can do exactly that. You know, they can light us up again and remember that love is not only possible, but it's worth, you know, every heartbreak, every experience that you're challenged with along the way. You know, for me, I went through a tremendous heartbreak, you know, one of those ones where you're on the floor crying, you know, not wanting to wake up in the morning and start your day, and not wanting to go to bed at night because you're afraid about what dreams you're going to have. And, you know, just knowing that that person might come into your dream again, and then you feel like you're back together, and then you wake up and you have to, it's that cycle I went through. And through that, you know, I just had all of these breakthroughs. You know, obviously there were steps that I took. There were, you know, things that were just kind of divine and given to me in that experience. But when I moved myself through that with grace and then found this partnership that I'm in now, I knew that I had to help and support and empower individuals to do that for themselves, you know, because if there's one thing the world can use, it can use more people really believing in love, loving each other, knowing how to take care of each other and love each other really well. Because from that space, you know, everything starts to transform. So that's my purpose, you know, really just bringing that possibility back into people's lives, and knowing that, you know, individuals like you and myself, we've been in that place where you've lost all hope and come out of it and created something that people call a fairy tale or only a movie tale romance. And I can say for a fact that it is absolutely possible. And the first step to experiencing that and having that is to believe in that yourself.
Yeah, I'd like to echo that and say possibility is something that can be hard to believe in, because, and you and I have both been there, Cole, where we may have felt, I can't see where, how, or if this is ever going to happen for me. I know I was there. It sounds like you were there. And I know many of the women that we talked to are there. And this can be a particularly hard time for a lot of women because the holiday season can represent a period of awareness of your singleness. And you have the sense that another year may have passed you by without you having perhaps the relationship of your dreams. But I too echo this idea, this concept, that there's always possibility in any given moment beyond what our eyes can see. And I know myself, I've been in some of those dark days in terms of my love life, also in terms of surviving breast cancer, where I couldn't see what was going to come next. I couldn't see the possibility, but there's always possibility beyond the moment. We just don't always know what it's going to be or how it's going to transpire. If you and I, Cole, had crystal balls and could look into that for our clients and tell them the how, when, and where, their Mr. Right was going to show up. We'd be incredibly wealthy women, first of all, right?
Right.
But beyond the idea that there is possibility and that we want to encourage that belief and that hope for the possibility, what are some of the other key things that you think a woman can do to be prepared for giving and receiving love and partnership?
Absolutely. So, one of the fundamental pieces that I work with on all of my clients is the relationship with self. So when I was in my rock bottom, my heartbreak, my biggest aha from that was that love had to start with me. I had spent my life really depending on the validation from others in order to feel love or empowered. When I was young, if my parents told me I was doing good, they told me they loved me, they told me, you're doing great, then I felt lovable, I felt worthy, I felt good about myself. And then, I got a little older, I had my first boyfriend, and on good days when he told me I was beautiful and that he liked me, I felt great and awesome and like I was doing well in the world. And on those days, first relationship, super tumultuous, on those days where he wasn't being so lovable or loving to me, I questioned, am I worthy? Am I okay? What am I doing wrong? What's wrong with me? And that continued to, be my experience. If men told me I was good enough, then I was good enough and I was lovable and I was worthy. And if my bosses told me I was doing good at my work, then, okay, I was on the right track. So it always came from external. And in that moment where I hit my rock bottom, I had no external. The man that I had moved across the country for, left my community, left my family, so I didn't have my normal support team around me, left my career, so I didn't have coworkers and bosses to, make me feel validated in another space of my life, had left me. So I was dependent on this one person at that point for that external validation, that external love that allowed me to know I am right, I am good, I'm doing fine. And so all I had in that moment was me and, my spirituality and myself, my inner, my highest self. And I realized that I had to work on me. Like I had to become in this space where I knew that I was lovable regardless of what surrounded me. I had to feel extremely worthy and empowered because I chose that for myself. And when I did that, I just became this woman who radiated love, who radiated magnetism. And it's extremely attractive when you come from that space. And I'm not necessarily talking about physical attraction. Yeah, of course, you will physically probably be in a space of a higher level of attraction because you're taking care of yourself, you're loving yourself, you're feeling really healthy in your body when you're coming from that space. But I'm talking about your energy is just magnetic. And from that space, my whole dating experience changed. I was getting asked out a ton. I was in a space of abundance when it came to love and men. And, prior to that, it was not like that. My courting process before that was always very different. I never really got asked out on dates. I always ended up being in a relationship with a friend, after some time of getting to know each other. So the number one step after being in that possibility is to really focus on creating love from the inside out. So self-love, self-care, feel good about yourself. If you feel good about yourself, that energy is going to translate. People are going to see the good in you. Men are going to recognize how amazing you are, all the things that you have to offer when you can see them and recognize them within yourself first. So that's a huge priority for me. Something I do with all of my clients is we create a daily love ritual where you're taking time to really fill your cup up with love, to really, know that you have power in the way that you feel. You don't have to depend on the external for you to love your life and feel good and know that you're worthy of love. So when you start to really get into that place where you're feeling amazing about yourself, you're feeling worthy and lovable just for being you, that's an extremely attractive and magnetic quality that's not only going to attract a man into your life, but keep you empowered through the courting process, through the ups and downs of a relationship. And you're now this woman who is healthy and empowered, and it's just love is a whole different experience from that place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think this is such an incredibly important and profound concept, this attracting love from the inside out, because as you've mentioned here, if we're completely dependent upon someone else's mood or someone else's actions or the feedback they're giving us on a certain day, if they're having an off day or a bad day or not in a loving space, then that can take away our confidence and security. And what came to mind as you were speaking, Cole, about this very profound concept is I think there's this distinction between us being in love, being in a state of love, being in a state where we're a loving being, first of all, to ourselves, and that increases our capacity to receive love, to give love, and to not be as thrown off by someone else's actions or lack of actions that are loving toward us, rather than just this concept of falling in love, right? Because falling in love, it by definition sounds like just kind of an out of control, something that we don't have any say over. And sure, there's that delicious feeling when we are really attracted to someone and we can feel that we're developing feelings from them. But as you also mentioned, even in those loving, amazing kinds of relationships, there are still those ups and downs. I've been married now to my wonderful husband for 10 years. And we have a great, wonderful, loving partnership. But you know what? We have good days, and we have better days, and we have days that are not quite so good. And yet, if you are grounded in that self-love and that being in love, being a being of love, and having that love from the inside out, it can stabilize things so that you can feel so much more happy and at peace in all aspects of your life. So I just love that you brought that out and just wanted to echo that and add on to it just a little bit.
Love it. Love the add-on. It's so, so true. It will definitely create stability and a greater sense of ease and just personal power whatever process or stage you're at in your journey to love.
Yeah. So another question I really want to ask you, Cole, is, you know, as women, we spend a lot of time. I know many of the women who are on this series have listened to many other of these kinds of series, have probably taken courses, maybe coaching, have done a lot of different things. And yet we still have a lot of big questions about men. We still find them in many ways to be a mystery, despite all of the things that we do to learn about them and understand them. And so I'm just wondering if you have a few insights that you can share with us from your perspective about some of the things that you think men find most attractive in women. That's the first part of this question. And then the second part, a couple of key things that you think women maybe should understand about men. Now, I realize we're talking in broad generalities here. Everyone's an individual, but let's just speak in some general terms and talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one of the things that you mentioned that I really loved is that, you know, a lot of the people listening have probably listened to, you know, this is your 4th year. So maybe they've been listening to you for many years. They've been learning from you. Maybe they've read books, done programs. And sometimes people get to a point where they feel disempowered because, oh, I've done all this and it's not working. That's not true. You have to recognize your progress. So often we're focused on the gap in between where we are now and where we want to be. And it's great that we aspire to create more for our lives. I mean, that's beautiful. I mean, that's part of what is fun about life is we get to play and create, right? And at the same time, it's super important to recognize your progress. So every course you've done, every mentor you've learned from, every book you've read has created progress in who you are. And knowledge is truly, truly powerful when it comes to understanding the opposite sex or same sex, but the opposite person across from you. So I think it's really important to make a note of that continue to learn. Continue to invite knowledge into your life. Continue to ask yourself to grow. Eventually, something's going to pop. Something's going to happen that really creates a shift for you. So everything you learn, if you think about your big desire that you have, maybe it's marrying a man or meeting somebody, think of that as like a big puzzle. And all of the knowledge you've acquired, it's putting in a puzzle piece for you. So you're filling your puzzle piece. So instead of going from a place of defeat and saying, oh my gosh, I have so much of this puzzle to finish, you really need to acknowledge, look at all these puzzle pieces I've found. I did that. I created that. Many people do not take their power into their hands and do that for themselves. So continue to learn, continue to grow, and that knowledge is going to be super, super powerful. So with that, I'm going to give you just a couple of really, really great tips as far as what men love in women, and then what you can understand about men to really deepen your connection with them. So the first thing that I always talk about, which you kind of touched on, that men really appreciate and love, is confidence. And I don't mean confidence from that external confidence where it's fake. We're standing there, we appear to be confident, but on the inside, we're questioning ourselves and insecure and feeling disempowered, around men or in tough situations. When I first was dating Michael, who's my partner, I asked him, what's the number one thing that you love about me? Like, what keeps you coming back? What keeps you showing up? And he said, it's your confidence. And it's not a false confidence. It's a love for yourself. It's a compassion for yourself. It's not that you think you're perfect. It's that when you're not perfect, you find a way to accept yourself and move through it. And he's like, I find that so attractive because you're happy. You're happy with yourself. You're happy with your life. And honestly, that releases some pressure off of me. When you're not happy, when you're not confident in your skin, a good man wants his woman to be happy. And he's going to feel a sense of responsibility for that. And if he's doing everything he knows to do, which may not be exactly what you want because men don't read your mind,
right?
He's going to feel really defeated if he can't help you shift into that confidence and joy. If you can't see what you have to offer and he's trying to give you love and show you how wonderful you are, if you can't really receive that because you don't have that confidence and that self-love within, that's going to create a disconnect between the two of you. So it's really important that, going back to what we talked about in the beginning, really finding your power, loving yourself, having this true sense of confidence in who you are, body, mind, and soul, the entirety of you, is an extremely attractive quality for men. They love it because they know you're happy. They know that you're doing your part in creating your happiness. And then you can be a partnership instead of a dependency on one another. So that is extremely attractive. Taking care of you. The thing is, a lot of times, especially when it comes to the opposite sex, because we don't understand them as well, we give love in a way that we want to be loved. So women want adoration. They want to be validated. They have these emotional needs that are different from the emotional needs that men have. And so we're giving to a man everything that we know how to give because we're women and we understand women. And it just doesn't connect quite as well. So one of the number one things that I teach women as far as how to create a deeper connection with men is to understand the emotional needs of men, because they're going to be different than yours. So the number one emotional need for a man that I really like to talk about is respect. Men absolutely need to know that they are respected. And of course, as a woman, you're going to say, well, I want to be respected too. But the way that they need to be respected is super, super different than the way that we need to be respected. So one of the things that men really need is they need you to respect their knowledge. They really need you to respect their knowledge. So what does that look like? It looks like something as simple as when you're in the car with a man and he's driving down the road and you guys get lost. Our tendency, because we're women, we're helpers, we really want to give and support in that situation. Our tendency is to jump in and try and help, right? You think you're doing great because you're saying, I can go ask somebody for directions, or let me, look on the GPS and figure it all out. Men really need to know that you trust them, that you respect their knowledge, that in that moment when you're in a jam, you can relinquish control and allow him to fix it. Trust him. He will find a way out of that situation. And if he can't, he will ask for help when he needs it.
Mm-hmm.
We give a lot of unsolicited help and advice and support as women because we just want to help. That's just the way we are. We're lovers, we're givers. But in that moment, if you can respect a man's knowledge and trust him and really not undermine him and really hold that space, he's going to feel like an empowered man around you. He's going to want to continue to give to you because he knows that you trust him. I had a friend who went to this workshop and there was a panel of men on it, and it was 7 men, and they were all asked individually what was the number one desire they had when it came to love and their partnerships. And every single one of them answered that they wanted to be their partner's hero. In that moment where you're in a jam, let him be your hero. Let him know that you need him and you respect his knowledge and you trust him in situations. And when a man feels empowered around you, when he feels like I am respected, she trusts me, she knows that I can handle myself, he is going to be able to give you that adoration. When you start to doubt him and his knowledge, and you correct him and you question him constantly, which is a very common thing to do, right? It comes from a loving place. I'm not saying for one second that it's malicious, but when you do that, he starts to question himself. And if a man questions himself, he's going to question whether he can be a good partner to you. And that is not an empowering place for a man to be. That's not going to make him feel good. And a man really wants to feel like he can do his part in his relationship. So that's one of my number one tips. Respect is huge for men, huge emotional need. There's, different levels of respect that I go through in my courses with women. I do a whole class. I will do a whole hour class on this content for my clients. But this is something that you can give to men, and the men in your life. Practice with your friends, your fathers, really practice and see how they respond to that.
Yeah, Cole, I'm so happy that you brought this up because I think it's almost impossible to overemphasize how important this is to men. Mm-hmm. It's something I've had to learn in my relationship with my husband because I do tend to be one that wants to jump in and help, right? And I think that is a natural tendency. Yeah. As we were speaking, I remembered an interview I had with John Gray a couple of years back. I've interviewed him several times, but in this one interview, he specifically talked about this incident with his wife, Bonnie, and how they had been on a road trip, and he got so lost that he ended up even in the wrong state.
Oh, wow.
I mean, we're not just talking a little lost, but he was entirely in the wrong state. And he said he knew at that moment that he was really in love with Bonnie. This was before they got married, because her response was, Well, I have no idea where we are, but look at this beautiful sunrise.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
and he said that made him feel so, that endeared her to him so much and made him feel so trusted
Yeah.
and respected, because she didn't try to fix it. She didn't make him wrong or bad. She just was in that moment and allowed it to be. And I thought that was a really beautiful example of what we're talking about here, about this concept of respect. And it also made me just remember my husband and I recently returned from a trip, a 10th anniversary trip to Italy. And when we got back, they had these little machines where you had to scan your passport to go through customs. My husband was doing it wrong. So I jumped in, like what we're talking about here. I jumped in to try to help him, and he got mad. He said, "You have to let me figure it out myself." And so, it's just that little tiny thing. I was trying to be loving and helpful, but to him, that made him feel a bit incompetent. And he would have figured it out, and I jumped in just a little bit too soon. So I think this is an important awareness to have. In my mind, I was being loving, but I think that this is so important. And I think your suggestion to practice it on your coworkers, your dad, your brothers, all the men you come in contact with, can allow you to develop this quality in a way that's going to really endear you in a partnership. And it's almost impossible to overemphasize how important it is.
It's so true. It's so funny. Like, Michael, I love that you shared that story. Michael and I just had a conversation about it this morning. We
Really?
just had a conversation, and it's those simple moments where it shows up, where we're jumping in and, just really taking away that moment from them where they can just take care of themselves, like trust them.
Yeah.
Then your man or your potential man can take care of himself, and he will ask you for help when he's ready for it. If a man asks you for help too, also recognize that. If a man asks you for help, that's a huge honor. He truly respects you when he asks you for help. Anytime Michael comes to me with something and he asks me for help, I really tune in and I really connect, and I give him all I've got in that moment, because I know what it takes for a man to ask for help. He really, really respects you. And so see that as a sign of love. If a man ever asks for help, he's really showing you that he honors you, he cares for you, and he respects what you have to say and offer.
Yeah. Yeah. And just one other thing, I think that's so important you mentioned that, but I also wanted to just add that if a man feels disrespected, or if he feels like you are jumping in, or as I say it sometimes, giving too much too fast too soon, it can take away his motivation. And it can actually, as you already talked about, make him doubt his ability to be a good partner for you. So it can squelch some of the romantic feelings. So I think we have a couple challenges as women. One is we do have a tendency to want to help and to show our love in this way. And the other is, let's face it, sometimes we can do things a little bit better or a little faster, or in our minds, a little different way. Yeah. It's going to be more effective, right? And still we have to allow the man the opportunity to do it in his way. Another little example of this is just when my husband loads the dishwasher. He puts the dishes in this totally skiwampus way. Well, two women couldn't load the dishwasher together without one of them thinking the other was doing it wrong, right? So we all have our own way, where we put the glasses, where we put the plates, etc. So my husband puts it in, and it's this total skiwampus way. He doesn't get nearly as many dishes in as I can. And so I have this, if he's loading the dishwasher, it's so hard for me, Cole, not to go behind him and want to fix it. Mm-hmm. And I have to just leave the room and say, you know what? I have to let this go. He's taking the initiative to load the dishwasher, to do the dishes, and I have to just trust that his way is okay. It doesn't have to be my way, just because in my mind, my way's a little better. Yeah. It's just another funny little example of how this can work.
I hear you. I hear you 100%. And I think it's important to look at these little moments because the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. So if this is how you're handling yourself in the little moments, it's going to show up in the big moments too. So if you can practice it, you can practice surrendering and letting go of the small stuff, because when we think about having a relationship, having a man in our lives for the rest of our lives, how he loads the dishwasher really doesn't matter. If it means that every night I get to put my head on Michael's shoulder and really think about everything I have to be grateful for. So practice it in the little things. And then when these big experiences come up or how you handle yourself really, really matters, it's going to have a big impact in how you show up.
Yeah. Yeah. And the good news is he's loading the dishwasher to begin with, right?
Yeah, exactly. You got a man loading the dishwasher. That's great.
There's a lot of points for that.
Uh-huh.
So, Cole, this is so much fun, and I'm really enjoying our time together. I know it's going by quickly. I love that we're in this place of creating possibility together. So I thank you from the bottom of my heart for your contribution and for the work that you're doing in the world. And we also want to thank each of you for being here with us. So thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.